Did Steve Jobs actually put up all the capital for Apple? No, he went to a bank. The bank supplied the capital. And this is true of Gates and everyone down the list. The bottom line of it, the capitalist supplies three things that Marx completely ignores, that are actually of far greater value than capital and actually entitle the capitalist to a share of the profit. But Marx, in a sense, submerges these three factors completely. First, the capitalist has the idea for the business. Without the idea, there's no business. Labor doesn't think of the idea, the capitalist does. It's his or her idea. They do it. Second, the capitalist organizes the business. Here you have this valet, he goes, I park the cars, I need all the money. The truth of it is, the reason you're getting $30 to park a car is you're at the Ritz-Carlton. Somebody built the Ritz-Carlton, somebody thought of it, somebody paid all the capital costs, somebody took out the insurance. You didn't think of that. If you come to my house and want to park my car, I'll pay you 50 cents. So the reason that you're getting $30 is not because of you. It's not your labor that's worth $30. It's the resort that's worth $30. And you didn't create that. So the capitalist has the idea for it, he organizes it, and third, he takes all the risk. Very important factor. The capitalist gets paid at the end. If the business has a bad quarter, Steve Jobs can't go, or the current Tim Cook can't go to Apple and say, sorry guys, I'm not going to pay you for 6 months. It's looking bad for us this half of the year. No, he has to pay them anyway. So labor is trading a fixed wage for security. But the entrepreneur is taking the risk that he might get nothing out of it, and he could even lose money. So the truth of the matter is that in fairly assessing the just rewards of capitalism, you have to match what the entrepreneur actually contributes. And to say it's just capital, it seems to me, is a gross misunderstanding how business is actually conducted in the United States and all around the world.
Unfortunately, I missed your speech because I had to take a test compelled by the capitalist system. I have heard some of your previous comments about Marx and Marxism, and as somebody who's read a little bit of Marx, I find them to be misinformed, or if we're not being politically correct here, pretty ignorant, especially about the prediction that the capitalist system will destroy itself automatically, and your comments about state ownership being the goal. So, I was wondering two things. One, which of Marx's writings, which of the stuff that he wrote specifically, have you read and used that to base your analysis of Marxism off of? And second, could you define socialism in a way that is related to Marxism and not just completely, separated from it? That way you can, point to like Hitler and call him a socialist in a way that Marx would not agree with.
Well, first of all, if the capitalist system is forcing you to take a test, and you went along with it, you're obviously a very pathetic sellout of the capitalist system. You should have taken a stance of bold independence and said, I don't care about capitalism, I don't care about the test, I want real knowledge, I'm going to hear D'Souza. But you didn't do that, that's okay. Look. Marx envisioned a socialism that would occur in two phases. The first would be the dictatorship of the proletariat, and then pure communism, in which the state itself would wither away. There'd be no state at all. That was Marxist doctrine.
Where do you get that from?
That the state will wither away?
Well, no, I mean that schema, dictatorship of the proletariat and all that. Which of Marx's writings are you specifically drawing upon?
Yeah, so what we have to do is we have to move from the early Marx, the Prolegomena to Hegel, the early writings of Marx through Das Kapital, through the Communist Manifesto. Now, there are some collaborations with Engels in which it's hard to disentangle one from the other. So there's an evolution in Marx. But I'm saying that early Marx was a little bit more liberal, which is to say more compatible with liberal democracy than later Marx. As Marx became radicalized over time, his doctrine of communism solidified. Socialism is to communism, socialism is the economic wing of communism. Now, you're right, Marx didn't envision state takeovers of anything, but Every actual socialist regime has done that. Every regime professing socialism has actually taken over industry and established government control over it, starting with Lenin. So I guess what I was doing is moving from Marxist theory to Marxist praxis, to action. And I don't know how to understand ideologies without looking at their practitioners. Imagine if somebody were to say that I profess true Christianity, but there are no Christians in the world. Everybody who actually says that they're a Christian is not a real Christian. I envision a Christianity that is not practiced by any so-called Christian. You'd be like, well, how do I make sense of what you're saying? All these people profess to be Christians, and if we can't look at what they think and what they believe and what they do, what is Christianity apart from Christians? So similarly, what is Marxism apart from Marxists who have actually tried to implement those ideologies?
Next question, please.
Yes, my main question is going to be a little off field. What is your guys' positions on the advent of new technology, specifically the game changers like quantum computing, CRISPR biotechnology, and 3D printing on the current intellectual battlefield between, I guess, not necessarily the left, but maybe the progressives, perhaps, would be a better way of explaining yourself, and the right, in terms of like, what are we going to do when it comes to when some guy gets his hands on the ability to genetically modify a new weapon, or when somebody can use quantum computing to screw up our financial markets, as well as, like with the Second Amendment and 3D printing, what that means.
I know you were supposed to ask a question, but I wish you would answer that question, because you've obviously thought about it a good deal and have a lot to say about it. But I can let Dinesh answer it.
Well, I'll just say that we have a system of technological capitalism, and Schumpeter said that that system would generate a gale of creative destruction, his phrase. And so what that means is that entrepreneurs will come up with new stuff, new ideas, new inventions. Remember, scientists can come up with an invention, but it doesn't become a product until someone figures out how to take it to market. So these inventions come out, and they have massively transforming effects. I mean, the simple establishment of websites, Expedia, Orbitz, has wiped out virtually the travel agent industry. So what I'm getting at is this is capitalism. It is unstable, it's unpredictable, but it produces the whole dynamism of American society. In principle, I'm not in favor of inequality, but I also recognize that you can't have this gale of creative destruction without inequality. And so the danger of obsessing about inequality is you then begin to curb the animal spirits that produce these remarkable changes that ultimately benefit not just Steve Jobs, but some third world guy in Kenya on a bicycle who's able to use his iPhone to be able to make a profit and make a living. So you have a clash in our society between two classes of people, both claiming ownership of the productive wealth of this country. Now, sometimes people will say things like, Obama's a socialist, these progressives are socialists. Now, I know that Bernie says he's a socialist, but I don't even believe him. He's not a socialist. In fact, he's too lazy to be a socialist. Because if you think about it, socialism means controlling the means of production. Socialism would actually require Bernie and his friends to drill for oil in Midland, Texas, to put things into the ground and take the oil out. Bernie has no interest in that. This is a guy who didn't have a job till he was 40. This is a guy who doesn't want to go into the ground to take oil. He wants to let the oil drillers get the oil out, and then put it into drums, and then label the drums, and then he wants to come in and tell them what to do with that wealth that they have created. So the ingenuity of modern progressivism is it actually doesn't produce anything in terms of wealth, but it stakes a moral claim to the wealth produced by other people in the name of social justice. Social justice.